Mr. Chairman and Senator Sanders. I'm Ross Eisenbray, Vice President of the Economic Policy Institute. We're a founding member of two groups, Strengthen Social Security and Retirement USA, that together represent over 50 million people who share a common view that strengthening retirement security requires strengthening Social Security, a goal that a higher retirement age would undermine. And Retirement USA just this month happens to be in the middle of Wake Up Washington month to do exactly what you're doing and try to let policymakers and the American public realize better what a crisis we're actually in retirement savings. The three-legged stool supporting retirement income has actually always been wobbly for most Americans. It's had one long, sturdy leg, which is Social Security, and two shorter, less reliable legs, employer-provided plans and personal savings. Social Security covers 97% of employees and provides more than half of retirement income for 55% of seniors, and a quarter of seniors get more than 90% of their income from Social Security. The second leg, personal savings, as you've just heard, is not very substantial. It's been shrinking as middle-class incomes have been squeezed. The housing market's collapse has only added to those woes. And the third leg, employer-provided pensions, have never covered much more than half of employees. Never. But the quality of coverage has declined steadily over the last 30 years, with traditional defined benefit pension plans disappearing and 401k plans replacing them. Now, 401ks have not proved to be an adequate substitute for the traditional pension plan or even for hybrid cash balance plans. The reasons are well known, and Phyllis Borsey and you both have mentioned some of them. They don't provide lifetime benefits, and retirees can outlive their assets. Employees, rather than professionals, manage their own assets, and they tend to do pretty badly. They take too much risk or too little risk. They fail to diversify. They put their investments in their employer stock. Even after Enron, we see this. And as you say, fees can decimate investment returns. Loans and hardship withdrawals that you've mentioned leak away assets. And then, you know, the fundamental issue is that employers generally contribute only through a match for employees' contributions, and lower income employees, as you've heard, tend not to participate, so they don't get anything from their employer as a result. The tax incentives are completely upside down for this program. They're skewed to higher income, higher tax bracket employees who need savings help the least, and as a result, 80% of the tax benefits, the incentives for participating in 401k plans, go to the top 20% of earners, just increasing the kind of income inequality that you and Senator Sanders have been talking about. The result is a nation woefully unprepared for retirement, and I have slightly different figures, but they're of about the same magnitude as you've just heard from Mr. Vanderhei. The Center for Retirement Research calculates that the retirement income deficit for households 32 to 64 is $6.6 trillion, and the federal budget deficit, of course, is about $1.2 trillion, to give you a reminder about the magnitude of this. So the 401k, I think, is at the heart of this problem. It's had serious negative consequences. It's increased inequality and allowed upper-income families to shelter more and more of their income from taxation without increasing overall retirement savings at a cost which you ought to try to calculate, which is somewhere, I think, between $1 and $2 trillion over the last 30 years. What have we bought for that? Its creation precipitated the loss of the traditional pension by providing employers a way to shift investment risk to employees as well as part of the cost of contributions. But other congressional actions have also harmed the defined benefit pension plan. Before 1986, some of these were well-intentioned and some of them were actually, I think, wise changes, but they still led to a decline in pension plans. Pension plans were a handy tax shelter for employers because earnings contributed to a plan aren't taxed, and employers routinely overfunded plans. But in 1986, Congress put limits on overfunding. Congress put limits on overfunding as a way to cut the federal budget deficit, and then made it harder for employers to recapture excess assets, which they were doing by putting on large excise taxes. Congress tightened funding rules to make them pinch hardest, and you did this again just a few years ago, to pinch hardest at the very times employers can least afford to increase their contributions during recessions and business downturns, whereas 401k plans are always funded at 100% by the contributions that the employer makes, and employers can actually cut back and suspend their contributions unless they have a collective bargaining agreement. And then faster vesting rules, which were an important thing to make sure that employees got a pension, made pensions more expensive. All of these things and others, which I can talk about, contributed to the decline. But the result, of course, is this huge shift where 40% used to have a defined benefit plan and now less than 20%. So as on page 4 of my testimony, you'll see what the Center for Retirement Research predicts. The share of Americans at risk of being unable to maintain their living standards in retirement increases over time. Each succeeding generation will have less security going forward. Gen Xers, God save them, 71% will be at risk of not having an adequate retirement income. So my message is the one that you have already announced yourself. The most important thing I can say is that cutting Social Security benefits in this context would be disastrous. It would be pulling the rug out from under millions of people. Each year of raising the retirement age is a 6.5% cut in benefits that are already very modest. The average retiree has only $14,000 a year in Social Security benefits, which is less than the minimum wage. The program's 75-year funding gap is less than 2% of payroll. It should be and can be closed with revenue increases from upper income earners, more and more of whose income is escaping taxation, while the average worker, as you've said, pays Social Security tax on 100% of his or her wages. Polls show that this is the solution that Americans want. 83% of Americans in a Rockefeller Foundation poll said that they would like to see taxes raised on the upper income people who are not paying on their full share right now. And good policy actually happens to be good politics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ross. And now we'll turn to Ms. Miller. Ms. Miller, I also read your testimony last night, and it's very profound. Please proceed.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Chairman Harkin and Senator Sanders and the rest of this committee for inviting me to speak today on this important issue. Again, my name is Shireen. To this committee for inviting me to speak today on this important issue. Again, my name is Shireen Miller, and I am the mother of 2 and proud grandma. Personal care assistant in Falls Church, Virginia, and I'm a member of the SEIU Local 5. I started working when I was 17 years old. You name it, I've done it. I've pumped gas, managed a convenience store, I've cooked pizzas, worked in a nursing home. I'm used to living hand to mouth, doing what I have to do to pay the bills. Like most Americans, I'm worried about my retirement. I've worked hard all my life, but I have no pension. I've not been able to save enough money, and Social Security alone won't be enough to sustain me. As a personal care assistant, I make $12 an hour and receive no health care benefits, no retirement benefits, no sick time or vacation time. I care for a client, Marissa, in her mid-20s with spastic cerebral palsy. Personal care is not babysitting. My job includes bathing Marissa, cooking for Marissa, feeding her, helping her use the bathroom, assisting her with schoolwork for college, and anything else she cannot do by herself. I'd like to say that I am her hands since she can't use her own. I love Marissa. This is the most rewarding job I've ever had. Without the services I provide, she would not be able to live a full and productive life. I cannot do personal care forever. Marissa can move herself in a power chair, but I have to lift her into the bed, I have to lift her into the tub, and then if we want to go somewhere, I have to lift her into the car. It becomes harder each year. I think about the day when I permanently damaged my back or knees trying to lift her. After all, how many of you could imagine your grandmothers carrying a person around? Other career options will not be very attractive as there's not a lot of open doors for 65-year-olds with a high school education. So I have no planned retirement date. I'll keep on working until my body gives out. So if continuing working isn't an option, what do I have to fall back on for retirement? $12 an hour doesn't leave much room for savings. My entire paycheck goes to pay my mortgage, keep the electricity on, putting gas in my car, and buying groceries. I have approximately $28,000 left in a 401k from a previous job, and it's half as what it was before the market that crashed in 2008. I'm no expert in investing, but I do know that our retirement should not be left to the ups and downs of Wall Street. Thankfully, I know Social Security will be there for me. If I retire at the full retirement age, I'll receive at least $17,000 a year, and it will not be subject to the swings of the market. But still not enough. I make approximately $35,000 a year, and I'm barely making ends meet. And if there's an emergency, like necessary dental or car repairs, I have to borrow from my 401k. I have no idea how I can live off of $17,000 a year, and that's if my back holds up for another 20 years. And if the retirement age is raised to 70, as some are proposing, I would lose another 5% of my pay if I chose to retire at the current retirement rate. We need to act to strengthen Social Security. Cutting Social Security or raising the retirement age is not an option, but we need to do more. Members of this committee and every lawmaker in Washington needs to commit to finding solutions that allow Americans who spend a lifetime of hard work driving their bodies to the limit to retire with dignity, to be able to pay their bills and spend time with their grandchildren. I hope we can meet this challenge. Thank you again for letting me share my story.
Well, thank you, Ms. Miller, for putting it in concrete human terms.
Thank you.
A lot of times, I mean, I'm not disparaging our experts who are here. They do incredibly important work, too, in informing us as to what is happening. But I think too often we just don't get down to the real people and what's happening out there. As I said, we keep talking about it around here about tax breaks for $250 and above or $1 million and above, and as if that's the middle class of America. You're the middle class of America. Most Americans are making what you make, $35,000, $40,000, $45,000, $50,000, $55,000 a year. That's the middle class of America. And they are being squeezed like they've never been squeezed before. And on top of that, they're losing their retirements. And so is it any surprise that the vast middle class of America is pretty upset with what we're doing? Doesn't come as any surprise to me. But thank you very much for being here and telling us your story. And I have a couple of questions for you, too. But I wanted to ask Mr. Vanderheet. In the old days, again, many people got their defined benefit pension through their employers. They didn't have to sign up or choose which plan. It was just automatic. Now, retirement's gotten a lot more complicated. Workers with 401ks need to do research, figure out how much they need to set aside for retirement. That's their own choice, their own decision. Less than, at least my figures are what I've been informed, is that less than half of the workers actually do the calculations. Only about 1/3 are getting professional advice. You note in your written testimony that when workers understand how much they need for a secure retirement, they generally increase their savings. In that regard, there have been proposals, including one from Senator Bingaman, to require 401K account balances to show a participant's projected